Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel and this is the Hour of the Raven, your channel for everything Ravenloft, RPG, Dungeons and Dragons, and horror. Today, we will delve deeper into our studies of the Dread Doppelgangers, exploring aspects of their mind and society. Although these creatures are classic Dungeons and Dragons villains, in the Ravenloft setting, the Dread Doppelgangers were created, monsters that became even more dangerous and threatening. The main book with information about these creatures is a book created by fans and available on the Fraternity of Shadows website. The Richten Society Archives Doppelgangers is the definitive guide to these creatures, featuring over 380 pages of rich material. Our next video will be based on this book, and I will leave the link below in the video description where you can download the book. This video will not focus on game mechanics, but will be directly inspired by the lore and history of these creatures within Ravenloft, mainly, in this case, on the fan material from the 3rd edition. If you play the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, you will see that there are some differences in the approach to doppelgangers, but this video can be a source of information or even inspiration for creating new and more dangerous villains for your campaign. In this video, we will explore the mysteries of their mind and society. Are you ready? After experiencing the dangers of Timor and Peridon, we escape the dangerous metropolis on a ship that will take us back to the Sea of Sorrows and the coast of the core. During the monotonous crossing of the mist, we take advantage of the time we have to delve into the dossier on the doppelgangers that we stole to uncover the mysteries about the Dread Doppelgangers. Hour of the Raven. The Dread Doppelgangers are supernatural creatures whose alien and protean appearance distance them from the humanity they infiltrate. However, their cycle of life and reproduction also establishes a powerful connection between these creatures and humanity, and their mentality has disturbing and dark parallels with the human psyche. Hunters of these monstrosities, scholars and academics in psychology and medicine have been trying for years to uncover the secrets of the mind of this race of impostors. Their alien mindset is adapted to assume and discard various personas, as if merely changing clothes. However, these monsters have a sense of true identity, but even this identity can be divided into 3 different aspects, called the child phase, the clay, and the imago. A doppelganger's mind is initially influenced by the human family they are born into, and this part of their identity is known as their child phase. When a doppelganger infiltrates its offspring into a human family, the child is usually fathered by the mother without the family being aware of the child's monstrous nature. The doppelganger at this age is unaware of its true nature and believes it is a human. At this stage of life, the doppelganger's personality is influenced and shaped by their guardians and family, and develops emotional and ethical bonds and personality traits. Their monstrous minds adapt to this reality, and these children tend to be extremely possessive and jealous in their emotional relationships, in addition to being extremely curious to the point of being nosy. This entire initial persona of the child phase is destroyed in a traumatic way when the awakening arrives and the young doppelganger begins to discover its true nature. When the psychic ability to read minds starts to work out of control, the uncontrolled and unfiltered readings of thoughts of family and loved ones often completely deteriorate previous established relationships. When uncontrolled transformations begin, everything the doppelganger knows about their own identity is often destroyed, and many are overcome by depression and insanity. It is not uncommon for some to give in to madness or even commit suicide. Those who can survive this trauma and discover the truth about their race abandon and reject their child face identity. But no matter how they denied their persona from when they were innocent and ignorant, some aspects of this identity remain with the doppelgangers. It is not uncommon for these monsters to harbor grudges, resentments, or affinities from their childhood, and some may even maintain some behavioral traits, language expressions, phobias, or habits from their childhood, which can be used to identify them by hunters who know their past. After their awakening, when they abandon their child face identity, doppelgangers begin to develop their monstrous identity we call the clay. Renouncing their former life, they embrace their monstrosity, becoming cold and calculating social parasites, interested solely in a selfish vision of their survival and prosperity. Its monstrous identity develops a deep contempt for humanity, seeing humans and other races as inferior beings and servants of its interests. The rite of passage for many newly awakened doppelgangers involve the murders of humans, and many become cold, calculating killers. The identity of the clay is held up by many scholars as proof that the doppelganger race is inherently evil and that they inevitably give in to the dark side. However, some notable psychologists from the University of Paridon argue that this monstrous identity is a survival reaction of this race after losing their childhood identity. Psychic probing of the thoughts of their relatives and friends often reveal deep disappointments, creating fissures in their confidence. Furthermore, there is an undeniable feeling of loss, as the traumatic events that mark their awakening means that they have to permanently abandon their previous life. Thus, the rejection of humanity is portrayed by these academics as a coping mechanism for trauma, which ends up moving these creatures away from their origins to embrace their monstrous side. These theories seem to be reinforced by some important factual observations. Although the clay identity is known for its contempt for humanity, the truth is that these creatures still maintain concepts of beauty, respectability, and sexuality that they learned during their social life in childhood, and that they are ashamed and even repulsed by their true form. Naturally, these creatures avoid demonstrating their true form in public, but even after having their identity publicly revealed, they continue to refuse to display their true form whenever they can, as if they were somehow ashamed of their appearance, feeling exposed and humiliated. The monstrous identity we call clay is not the last facet of their identity. Over the course of its life, a doppelganger learns to assume numerous forms and persona, like a social parasite. One of these personalities, however, ends up becoming his favorite persona, from whom it will create a deep identification and obsession, and from whom he will steal its identity and lifestyle. This personality is called imago. Despite all the contempt they claim to have for humanity, doppelgangers develop an obsession with a human they admire and envy. This process usually affects all doppelgangers around 4 to 5 years after their awakening, when they begin the process of assuming its imago identity and persona. A doppelganger's fixation and obsession with its imago personality approaches an unhealthy infatuation. First, they replace someone close to their target and take advantage of this proximity to absorb the victim's entire personality, be it their behavioral mannerisms, beliefs, habits, deep thoughts, and past. Eventually, after a period of stalking the victim, the doppelgangers murder and replace the target. This emotional bond between stalker and victim is so intense that most doppelgangers refuse to talk about this murder, and perhaps even suppress memories of it. Some cases demonstrate that doppelgangers even show signs of respect for the corpses of their imago victims, creating tombs and memorials, even when it would be more prudent to destroy any evidence. The imago personality, once assumed, will be the personality with which the doppelganger feels most comfortable and in which it will spend most of his time when he is not involved in intrigues or activities of its clan. Although they still maintain the coldness and contempt for humanity of their clay personality, the imago personality will exert a great influence on the creature, and for a few years the creature will suffer constant psychological stress until it manages to reconcile both personalities. It is not uncommon, however, for some creatures to end up suffering some type of insanity when their imago and clay personalities prove irreconcilable. A doppelganger is possessive and protective of its imago persona and will not tolerate other doppelgangers imitating this persona without its authorization. The creature's connection with this persona is so great that when for some reason it is forced to abandon this persona, many suffer from insanity. An important point to be highlighted regarding the mentality of doppelgangers is their gender identification. Although these creatures are naturally asexual and do not show any sexual impulse during the different phases of their life and personality, they have some gender identification. During their childhood phase, they identify with the male or female gender according to the gender that their bodies assumed while still in their mother's womb. And during this phase, they learn human aspects of standards of beauty, behavior, and sexuality of this gender. After their awakening, their clay identity is completely asexual, and they do not identify with any gender. The creature begins to see the lost aspects of their sexuality as an advantage, despising this aspect of human nature as inferior. However, many doppelgangers begin to refer to themselves as male or female after assuming their imago personality. Another factor that seems to dominate the minds of these creatures is their obsession with obtaining secrets and the paranoia with protecting them. As social parasites, they know they need to protect their position and that they can best do so by obtaining and protecting secrets from those around them. Their curiosity for secrets can even be used against their interests, and some hunters can skillfully exploit this obsession to try to lure a doppelganger into a trap. Often, a doppelganger obsession with obtaining secrets occurs through their psychic ability to probe the minds of those around them, and they absorb a large volume of information through reading other people's thoughts. This large volume of information in the doppelgangers' minds leads some of them, especially young creatures who have not yet developed their imago personality, to develop a mechanism to relieve their mind of the excess information through epigraphy. These creatures begin to compulsively write down thoughts that they have absorbed around them, in a flow of words, and sometimes some of their own thoughts are transcribed in this way. This compulsion can be an important clue for hunters to identify the presence of a doppelganger, or perhaps even prove part of their thoughts and plans. At first glance, the doppelgangers as a social parasite could easily adopt a solitary behavior, and reports from outsiders from out of the mists tells how these paranoid and secretive creatures sometimes infiltrate a society alone. However, Paradon's Dread Doppelgangers have a complex society, organized into structures of hierarchy and power. This social organization is used by these creatures to reinforce their social position and interests, but currently it is also quite violent and competitive. Ancient records indicate that Doppelganger society was organized around clans, and that the criteria of seniority was used to define its leaders. The elders of each clan governed their group, and the Council of Elders resolve any disputes and actions for the benefit of the community. However, a few centuries ago, the situation escalated into conflict when several clans went to war and the authority of the elders began to be questioned. Many suspect that this turbulent period was the work of the infamous Dark Lord Sodo, who in his thirst for power destroyed the pillars of the Doppelganger Society to rise to the highest position of power. His actions overthrew the current order, and the social position of the society are now exercised not by a pre-established criteria, but by force and sagacity, with internal disputes for power often becoming lethal. At the highest point of the social hierarchy is Sodo, the Grand Master of the entire Doppelganger Society. His presence is feared and respected by his peers, and those who have ever dared to challenge his authority have quickly met their end. His inability to maintain his form for more than a few minutes is compensated by his sagacity, and this paranoid leader always seems to be one step ahead of his rivals, like a spider at the center of some great web. Just below the Grand Master Sodo are his main servants and allies, called the Vanguard. The figure of the Grand Master rarely makes a public appearance, and it's the members of the Vanguard who pass on his orders through the Doppelganger Society. This position is one of the most coveted in Doppelganger Society for its prestige, authority, and power. These Doppelgangers who achieve such power are rarely ordinary creatures, and their extraordinary capabilities make them terrifying adversaries. Still in the central position around Sodo and the Doppelganger hierarchy are the Sentinels, who serve the Vanguard as its personal agents and executors, having abandoned the traditional clan structure to aim to one day rise in Sodo's favor and become part of the distinguished Vanguard. In addition to the personal group that surround Grand Master Sodo, the structure of Doppelganger Society is organized around clans. In the remote past, these structures began as family structures, but currently these social groups no longer include only doppelgangers with some type of kinship. Clans generally have around 12 members and operate in a certain territory that they conquered in their games of intrigue and power, and where their agents infiltrate human society. Once again, Grandmaster Sodo has a hand in how he manages disputes between clans over territory and can favor or harm clans as he sees fit. Within a clan, the highest position is that of the leader, who is responsible for outlining their actions, strategies, negotiating with other clans, or even turning directly to the Grand Master in case of disputes. This is generally the most competent among the members of a clan, the one who can amalgamate and protect the greatest amount of secrets and act ruthlessly against their enemies. It is the leader of a clan who distributes their niches of activities among its members, distributing these roles to play when infiltrating society to improve the interests of their clan. He is also the one who handles discipline and punishment among its members. Although Sodo reserves the exclusive right to enact the death penalty, it is not uncommon for mysterious disappearances and accidents to affect rebellious or power-hungry members. Within the clan, there is also a rigid hierarchy, where the veterans and most competent are just below the leader, and the newly admitted and newcomers occupy the lowest position in society. Internal disputes and games of intrigue, combat with the Marikids of Timor, and confrontation with monster hunters have led to a high mortality rate for the Doppelgangers. Due to this high mortality that afflicts the Doppelganger population, each clan usually also monitors several children who are being raised in human families. The lowest in a clan's hierarchy are the Quislings or Renegades. This group is made up of permanent or temporary agents that are not doppelgangers, who are recruited to serve the clan. Most of these servants are ignorant of the true nature of their masters, who take advantage of Peridon's cheap and abundant labor. Others know the truth about their mentors, but still choose to serve the Doppelgangers. Some creatures of the night, such as jackalwares, who have infiltrated Peridon, have found an important role in this social scheme. Finally, there are those who are manipulated as temporary clan agents. It is not uncommon for a group of adventurers or doppelganger hunters with good intentions to be nothing more than puppets in some other clan's games of intrigue and power. In addition to the social organization of the clans, several doppelgangers have sought to improve their capability through alchemical means, and have infiltrated and organized themselves into secret lodges to invest themselves into the mysteries and science. There are several paths for improving doppelgangers' abilities through alchemical process, and these impostors have infiltrated the secret groups of scientists and arcane scholars to control such societies. Within these secret lodges, alchemical knowledge and mystical doctrines and philosophies mix, and these societies allow a new level of intrigue and secrecy among doppelgangers, sheltering members of different clans in games of intrigue and conspiracies. The power exercised by Sodo as Grand Master is felt throughout Doppelganger society, and is often exercised in subtle ways. Those who displease him sometimes suffer unfortunate accidents, disappearances, or even receive the distinct honor of carrying out a suicide mission on behalf of members of their race. When Sodo wishes to make any of his punishments public, he can however call a conclave, and beneath the parliament in the king's quarters there is a secret hall where the Doppelganger Society meets for a trial. In a parody of the complex judicial procedures of a court, the accused undergoes a severe interrogation and mental probe, being publicly humiliated, until Sodo passes his final judgment. In no situation was the conclave colored by its leader, without the accused being sentenced to death at the end, after a humiliating public hearing, reinforcing the theatrical aspect of a public execution and display of power. Sodo is the highest authority, and all Doppelganger society must strictly follow his orders and laws. And there are currently three main laws that regulate society. The first is that a Doppelganger is responsible for the secrecy of its actions, and may be personally responsible for any oversight that expose their race to the eyes of the population. Each one must be able to hide the evidence of their presence, silence witnesses, and even report companions to their superiors when they make mistakes that could harm the Doppelganger's secrets. This responsibility also extends to the Doppelganger subordinates he brings to his cause, and he may answer for the actions of the quislings or human renegades he has recruited as permanent or temporary servants. The second law is to respect the property of another Doppelganger. The possessive nature of a Doppelganger causes them to be extremely possessive of what they conquer and claim as theirs. Although the society is the stage of intense internal dispute for social positions, no Doppelganger should try to usurp an identity already stolen by another of their race, take one of their niches of activity and social infiltration, or even interfere with humans and servants who are under their area of control and influence. This law is one of the most frequently violated and is always the subject of conflict between clans of doppelgangers. Rarely does Sodo intervene indirectly, allowing internal conflicts between clans to flourish to manipulate them, unless he understands that his own authority is in some way threatened. Finally, the third law is that the authority of a higher-ranking doppelganger must be respected. Members of a lower hierarchical position should never question openly or through their actions the orders and instructions of their superiors. Although this law is reinforced by pseudo and clan leaders, it is often violated in the competitive Doppelganger society. Even though open defiance of authority is not socially tolerated, the constant fight for position can only flow if members of higher positions fall, and even if they do not challenge their leaders, it is very common for lower-ranking members to conspire to reveal their secrets in very complex games of intrigue, blackmail, and murder. After all, crime only exists if the criminal is caught red-handed for its actions. As our vessel continues to traverse the mysterious mistway that connects Peridon to the Sea of Sorrows, we delve deeper into the mysteries of the mind and society of the Dread Doppelgangers of Peridon. Our studies have shown us the mysteries that surround these creatures, but the time has come to unveil their tactics, powers, and weaknesses. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and let's discover how to hunt and destroy Doppelgangers.